are now listening to Highline's newest social justice podcast, Safer Sound. In this radio show, we will open our minds and our hearts to new perspectives and new people. Let's explore together the meaning of creating true safe spaces in the Puget Sound and our local areas, especially through a transformative justice lens. Transformative justice is all about getting to the root of the systemic issues that continue to threaten the safety of our communities, not just physical, but also psychological and emotional safety. We want to see a more safe and more harmonious future for everyone in the Puget Sound region. Shout out to the Highline Heritage Museum for serving as our home base, and to One America 106.5 Low Power FM for offering this beautiful and unique space for us to have this show. We also want to give a shout out to Washington State Historical Society for sponsoring and making this show possible. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Tien Van, and I'm so excited to talk with you.
For that.
So hello everyone, welcome to Safer Sound, and I'm really excited to introduce this guest, which is a friend of mine, actually kind of a new / old friend. Like, we've known each other a while through social media. We met through like an app.
Yes,
and this is actually our first time hanging out. Like, even though we've like known each other for years, it's kind of crazy like how the internet brings people together like that. Like, we know each other, but we don't know each other. Yeah, crazy world. But I really want to share about Sharon, what are your pronouns, Sharon?
She, her.
Okay. Sharon, she, her. Yes, I'm really happy to introduce you to her because she's just like such a great vibe, great person to talk to, someone that I really enjoy speaking with, and just very present and very curious person who I look up to in many ways. So I'm so grateful we're here together. We're actually like planning to hopefully do like a Buddhist meditation retreat sometime soon.
Yes.
Because that's something that we've related to in terms of like our Vietnamese American backgrounds. I would love to share more about her as a person, but also we're going to talk a little bit about her experiences working as a certified medical assistant, the work that she's done with King County through the Sexual Assault Resource Center, and things such as that. So let's get into it.
Yes.
Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you for that intro. Thank you so much, Teeny. That means a lot to me because you inspire me a lot, and like I've been grateful to be able to witness like your journey on social media, and I'm just so happy that we've gotten to a point where we are able to like, you know, be in the same spaces with each other, and I'm just excited. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for coming here. This is great, and this is also our first ever recording, so
let's do it.
Okay, I'm a little scared, but no, I think we'll be good. We're just talking, like we're really just talking, and the point of today's recording really is we're gonna be talking about what it means to have a safe space in your mind. I really want... I'm getting a phone call. I'm sorry. 1 second. Decline. Okay. Sorry, Julie. I can't pay. I should have silenced. Let me silence my phone right now. Okay. Boom. Anyway.
Learning as we go. Totally. Yep. Part of the natural process. Yes. Live for it.
So, safe space in your mind is really just focusing more. We're going to talk about in the show like safe spaces in community, but I think for this first episode, I really want to talk about what it means to have a safe space within yourself, because that has such a powerful impact on everyone else around you. And if we can create safety within ourselves, then we can bring that to the communities that we want to be a part of. So I really want to focus on that for today and our own personal journey, especially Sharon's, with creating that sanctuary within herself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, let's do our first question. This one's kind of a simple question, just to get us warmed up. But what is a safe space in your mind? What does that look like for you?
I think a safe space in my mind, what it looks like for me is being able to slow down, especially as someone who grew up with a very dysregulated nervous system, especially with my intersectional identities as a queer woman of color who grew up as the eldest daughter in a very collectivist culture. So I'm Vietnamese Chinese. And so there's this idea that, if you're the eldest, then especially if your parents are immigrants, you're going to have to pitch in and help out a lot with a lot of the aspects of what it means to be a citizen within America and just the idea of having to assimilate. So, I was out there at the fresh age of 12 years old helping my family out with taxes and posting Craigslist posts about selling cars and whatnot, whatever it takes to get the money. So for me, I've just always have grown up with the sense of urgency, I think, as well as living within the hustle and bustle mindset of this capitalistic world that we live in. I hope that's okay for me to speak to you. And so I think my parents, with them being immigrants and having to work so hard, their type of living was instilled in me with regard to having to have a mindset of just doing what I need to do to survive, and mixed with the sense of urgency, and then just my own mental health struggles that I deal with ADHD and anxiety. There's that sense of oh my God, am I doing enough? Am I at where I need to be? We were sort of talking about this a little bit before the podcast, where I spoke to not having a college degree, and so that if when you think about the American dream and what you're supposed to do out of high school, I definitely had to navigate through those challenges. And also, sorry, I'm jumping around, but growing up and moving out of my family's house when I was 18, which is not really something that's culturally accepted, I ended up having to take on, sort of those generational wounds of, again, just okay, I have to put my survival hat on and what I need to do to ensure that I am able to survive on my own without any help. So I would say it's been a journey. I've gotten to the point where I have been able to build myself up to where I do have that stability externally, right? I have a long-term partner that I've been with for almost a decade now. I have a job that's paying pretty well in a corporate space, but I think what I was then left with was, okay, what about me? What about the feeling of being able to feel safe within my own self and feeling like I can be fully authentic, especially as someone who is a woman of color who's stepping into the space, the corporate space, in the beginning of their career. That was really dysregulating for me. And so I've done a lot of work within myself between me and my therapist, and me and ChatGPT. I'm definitely going to talk about that. ChatGPT is a great resource for anyone that doesn't have access to, a community or a therapist. But just being able to do that self-reflection and getting to know myself better is what I'm trying to get at. It has definitely been able to help me get to that safe space within my mind, because then I'm actually able to tune in more with my body, especially with how the system is set up. It can remove ourselves from our body. So again, just really tapping into the somatics of it all. Because as I'm sure a lot of other people can relate when it comes to therapy, and as someone who's neurodivergent, more often than not, I will intellectualize a lot of my healing, and I'll be
yes, same.
And I'll be like, oh, that's because of this. This is because I have depression. Because
instead of feeling your feelings, you're just thinking about the feelings.
Yes. And I was talking about this with my one of my queer BIPOC friends last night, and he was like, yeah, it's such a weird way for our bodies to protect ourselves, you know? Because as we're going through it, we're thinking like, oh yeah, I'm facing my trauma. I'm like doing the healing. But at the end of the day, it's just, again, just trying to pause and trying to ground ourselves, which I'm practicing a lot nowadays. And it's just been really helpful for me to, try to stay present in a world that is, just
demands that you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whether it be through social media, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on, but like, yeah, or just surviving, going to work and having to like live paycheck to paycheck and like just the things of adult life.
So it sounds like you had this journey of sort of, first you had to meet your own basic needs and be self-sufficient, but once you had that, you still had other things and other needs up higher on that hierarchy, that like belonging and like self-reflection, that you had to really dig for and to fight for, to have that for yourself, because it's not easy when you're growing up to like be raised this way in which you're constantly dysregulated, constantly in survival mode, like trying to get bills paid, trying to get food on the table. When you're like that, you can't think of these things like, oh, what does safety feel like in my body? Because you're so focused on surviving.
Yeah.
So, I can tell, like, that you really, the fact that you even had to work so hard for it coming from that place, like, I really admire that, because some people aren't willing to do that work. Like, they might run away from it even. So,
yeah, because of how we've been sort of told that, like, that is the way to go. That's how you are able to succeed in this type of, I don't know, within America, I guess. So, or even just, I don't know if it's the same outside in other countries, but just like that idea of like, I need to be able to focus on getting food on the table and getting, being able to take care of myself. And even then, like I'm already at a deficit when it comes to that because of my mental health issues. I don't know if anyone plays horror games, but there's like a thing called like resource management, right? And so like you, more often than not, you'll be playing like a character, and the character that you're playing has an inventory with them, and you only have like so many slots open, and you have to manage like, okay, am I going to be able to pick up these bullets for these zombies, or like do I have to make sure that I have space to be able to pick up these herbs so I can heal within the game? So I feel like that directly translates to like the experience that I live with these mental health issues, and like all, just like, yeah, not only mental health issues, but the upbringing of like I think the societal pressures that everyone faces within, just like being an adult today. So
yeah, working with those limited resources, because you're already coming from a place of limited resources, so you have to be innovative and resourceful with what you have in order to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
So I love that. And you mentioned something earlier. I think it was intellectualizing your feelings. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with that as a concept. Do you mind sharing more about what that is?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this probably comes up, this is just an assumption, this is probably that comes up for those who have had the ability to see a therapist, or even if for those who have not had the ability to see a therapist. But if you are at a place where you are trying to figure out what is going on with the struggles that I'm facing, and trying to dig deeper and figure out, okay, like, do I have mental health issues? And it doesn't even have to be to a point where you are putting a name to those things, but it's the process of trying to figure out what's wrong with me. I think that's the mindset that I had.
What's wrong with you? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah. Like I need to be fixed.
Yeah.
I need to somehow optimize myself so that way I can actually operate and be a functioning member of society, you know, like having to optimize myself so I can be more productive. That was the type of headspace that I had to like try to move away from and realize like I don't need fixing. Yes, I want to be able to heal myself, but it's out of love. It's out of a space of like I want to be there for me because, you know, my parents, they didn't have that ability to hold space for themselves when it came to taking a look at sort of the underlying feelings that us as humans go through every day. But because we're so focused on trying to survive, you know, it prevents us from being able to tap within ourselves. And so for those who are just at the beginning of that healing journey, I say that very lightly because I feel like healing is very nonlinear. But for lack of a better way to say it, for those who are just trying to start tapping into their feelings, it can feel very scary and it can feel very dysregulating. It could feel very much just foreign, I think, because these weren't ideas that were openly supported growing up, you know, especially if we're talking about just therapy period, like, you know, that there's still stigma when it comes to that. And especially as someone who grew up Vietnamese Chinese, and I feel like can be similar for a lot of people with that just a bit more of a conservative upbringing, regardless of, you know, what type of ethnical background you might have. If your parents were more focused on like, okay, this is what you need to do to survive, there's a lot more often than not, there's not that space again for us to just slow down and pause and really ask ourselves like, how am I doing? And checking in with ourselves, like how am I actually doing? So when people are starting to get into the process of tapping into those feelings, again, it can be just very scary, and it's a lot easier to sort of put your hat on as of like I'm coming from like an academic, like researching, you know, space, you know, like, oh, this is what that means. It is definitely fun. I think it's not necessarily bad because I feel like being able to learn more about ourselves allows us more ability to control sort of the narrative within our mind, or like just these thoughts that we've grew up with that are negatively impacting us. So I think it's very powerful to have that knowledge. But at the end of the day, we also have to, there's another layer of healing where we have to pause and be like, okay, but like, what's the intent here? What's the intent behind here? Because am I actually able to feel these feelings, or am I just trying to distance myself from them and be like, oh, this is what it means to be someone with depression, and that's just what it is. And then sort of stopping that sense of curiosity that you already had to go deeper and trying to figure out, okay, how do I actually hold space for these feelings? How do I actually process them?
It's kind of at the point like that wall where you build that to keep yourself from being able to fully heal in a way. Like we do that like in the self-sabotaging way almost, like running away from our feelings by saying like, oh, I know what, like you might be able to name the feeling, but it doesn't necessarily mean like you're feeling it, like you're embodying it. And like that's an easy way to like how we protect ourselves from trauma and from negative emotions that continue to pop up. Like, and I think that's completely valid too. And sometimes folks need to do that. Like you do need to separate, you know, like see it more objectively, and then that is still a great place to be, to start and just to be aware. But I think what like we're talking about, like not intellectualizing your feelings, like that's the next step of like, okay, now you're really letting yourself have that, you're feeling the feeling and not just naming it.
Yes. So you're allowing yourself to grieve. I think a lot of people
there's a lot of grief in there.
There's a lot of collective grief, right? And we unfortunately are rid of the opportunity and space to be able to process that because of the heavy emphasis on like having to survive. So it can be very painful. Like last year when I finally sat with those feelings and understood that like, okay, maybe my mom wasn't the the loving mom that my inner child needed. That was very painful. That was very much giving sobbing episodes, and like having to process all those nasty emotions. But I had to get to a point, like what you were saying earlier, Teeny, of being able to be stable enough to be able to hold space for those feelings. So, yeah.
I like that. Yes. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. I love you too. Thank you.
Understand.
Yeah, it's rough.
Gosh.
It's a lot of heavy emotions.
Especially when it comes to the parents.
Yeah.
The moms especially.
Yeah.
Because we rely on them so much in so many ways, but sometimes they take on a lot more than they realize too. And like even like my own mom is like still in many ways in survival mode, and doesn't have the privilege that I have to reflect and to have that safe space, is because survival is all she's ever known.
Yeah.
So it requires like forgiveness, but like you have to forgive yourself too through it. But that is really hard, because I think in my life, like, it was easy for me to just be like, that's my mom's fault, kind of blame it on her, instead of going deeper and having that compassion. And that hurts to accept, like, man, like, you, like, obviously I would want these things for her too. I would want her to have safety within herself, to have self-compassion, and to accept that, though, that is not the case, is like, it's hard.
That's a whole other level of grief within itself, of like grieving the mother that you could have had, right? And making peace with the reality of, this is who they are and this is who I want to accept. But to have to work through all of those barriers in the way when it comes to understanding that is not what they were able to have access to, and also making peace with the fact that more often than not, especially with the idea of filial piety, which is this concept within most Vietnamese Chinese cultures. I don't know if it is in other cultures, but this idea that like your elders are, you respect them and you don't talk back to them. They are the matriarchal and patriarchal powers of the family dynamic, and that is how we structure our family dynamics. It can be very hard to make peace with the fact that, like, because of filial piety, there might not be a chance for there to have any accountability taken from your parents. That is
we probably get into that, yeah. But also, shout out to the mothers. Shout out to the mothers. Yes. We love you, and like, we love you. And it is hard out here. Being a mom is fucking hard. I mean, let me cut that out. Okay, being a mom is hard.
Yes.
And we acknowledge that. So it's no hate on y'all, or even just anyone who's had an experience with their mother. I feel like they carry so much weight in this world. Like, they literally carry this world.
They do.
Like, yeah.
They created the
they
world.
Created it. Yeah.
Our worlds, like they're to have to hold that sense of pressure. I can't even imagine, as someone who's young and like trying to make it in a wholly different country and like completely different culture, being ripped away from the community that you had grown up with. It's very hard, and having that pressure to, again, put money and put food on the table, and also take care, having to, I think, hold the gentle power as the matriarch, because I feel like within, I'm going to just speak from Vietnamese culture, right? More often than not, there's that sense of like the father is the leader. So they have to hold a lot of that masculine energy of like, okay, I am here to help support the family. And now the mom is having to try to, I think, fill in the spot of having that soft power, especially if you grew up with a father who also had his own mixture of like trauma that he had to deal with.
Oh no, not the father trauma. No, this is so real. Like, we've been talking about fathers too.
Yes,
fathers too.
Y'all's are not safe. No.
No, we love y'all too, though.
No,
we love
yeah,
y'all.
yeah,
Shout
yeah,
out
yeah.
to the fathers and the dads.
Yes, yes. Sorry, yeah. There was a lot of anger that I had to sort of try to like what you were saying. Thank you for relating to that. There's a lot of anger within myself that I had to process, and so yeah. I'm gonna stop right there.
Yeah, I do want to get the opportunity to talk about your volunteer work with the King County, what is it, sexual
resource center.
Sexual resource.
Sorry,
Is
sexual.
that,
Sorry, King County.
Sorry, we're saying it wrong.
My work as a resource line advocate with the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there we go. You said it right. I think I said it right the first time.
There's an acronym. We just call it KSART.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
KSART. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
What would you like to know about it?
Well, I want to know like what got you into doing that work, and then also what are you seeing today, like, you know, actively, like what's going on in our communities, and to anyone, not just women, but like anyone who's like utilizing that resource.
Yeah, definitely. I wanna make sure that I'm answering your question correctly, because right now I used to work with King County Social Resource Center, and now I'm volunteering with Pro Exhale to help provide support to those who have just had abortions. So which one would you like to know more about?
Yes. Let's talk about the first one that you had, which is a past position, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So like what got you into that, and then what were you seeing?
Yeah, definitely. What got me into that? I grew up with experience of being a sexual assault victim myself as a child, and I think because of those experiences, I and the support that I didn't really have access to when I was younger, part of that fueled my want to do advocacy work. I think that I've always been drawn to it as someone who wants to be a caretaker. I mean, for anyone who grew up as an Asian child, you probably were influenced to take the role of being a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer.
Yeah, we didn't do none of that.
The closest thing that I did was getting to the healthcare field, and this was me transitioning away from my role as a nurse assistant for almost a decade into more of that advocacy work. So that's how I got into King County Sexual Assault Resource Center. My role was to be a resource line advocate. So this is still a living, breathing organization to this day. We have a 24/7 hour hotline that you can access if you are in need of any resources or support as a victim yourself, or maybe you're a friend or family of a victim. I think it helps destigmatize the topic of sexual trauma and sexual abuse as a whole, because it's a service that is readily available at any time, to be able to provide that space to sort of go through and talk about all the different challenging feelings that come up with it. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good, and thank you for mentioning the resource as well. And I'll be sure to include that in the show. I'll drop the number and everything, because I think actually the Highline area is a part of the South King County area too. So it's a resource for y'all to use. That that is free to use.
Yes,
we love free.
It is free. Yes. And then within my role, what did I see within the community? Is that what was that the question?
Yeah, or just like, you know, anything like that you noticed, or that maybe even that you wished was different, like.
I think for me, I can only live as someone who is of my own experiences. So as someone who's a queer woman of color, walking into that space, I felt so welcomed, and I felt very energized by the work that we were doing. I think a gap that I had seen within the community is, I remember it was during the core training, and this is no shade, nothing negative on the organization itself. It's just the matter of fact of what the statistics were. So one of the data sets that really caught my eye as someone who's a woman of color is the fact that most of the people that were calling in and reporting were people that were non-people of color.
Oh, interesting.
Can you speak to that?
But okay, so it was so not people of color weren't utilizing that as a reason at all? Like, dang.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think it's in connection to just, I think, one, not having maybe the outreach to those communities, or also, like, maybe those communities weren't aware that this was a resource, or if they were aware, I think there's a level of, concern about, okay, well, how safe am I actually going to be? How am I going to actually be received if I utilize this service? Especially because there's a lot of stigma that comes along with sexual assault. And, I think one of the main things that a lot of people think about when it comes to someone that has just been assaulted is like, okay, what kind of justice are you going to do to... What are you going to do? What are you going to do next to get your justice, right? And that usually involves the idea of getting legal help, right? And going to the courts and trying to, get the abuser to go to jail. And the idea is very much something that can bring up a lot more stress and anxiety for victims, especially if you're a person of color, because of the long-standing history of not being able to really have trust, or
like a mistrust in the institutions.
Yes. And it's not out of nowhere. It's very, very valid and common fear because of the harms that these legal systems have in place on people within marginalized communities.
Historically,
yes,
and maybe in some ways today, like up to this day.
Even to this day, even to this day.
Yeah, it's valid. That makes sense.
So that was definitely a gap that I had seen, and so within the small team of resource line advocates, I would try to put together a list of more inclusive resources, especially therapy providers, to help to help give out to our callers that might identify as a person of color, or might identify as someone who's part of the LGBT community, or someone who's gender nonconforming, all those things.
Okay, thank you for sharing about that. And like, I love hearing that work is being done because it's still so relevant to this day. I think that we should keep talking about it, and I'm glad we talked about it because it's one of those topics that when it gets brought up, people are like, they try to avoid, or they think like, there's definitely a lot of avoidance around facing this because the reality of it is it's still going on, and I think that's what makes it hard for people to face it and to talk openly about it because there's so much stigma, like you said, and like the more we can talk about it and just raise like awareness, like we can reduce the stigma and really point people down the right way to like heal from their experiences, which is really all that we want. More than anything, especially for victims, they deserve healing, they deserve to be heard. And
yes,
I'm really glad that you were part of doing that. Yeah,
thank you, that means a lot. Yes, definitely.
It sounds heavy too.
It's heavy work. Yeah, it's definitely heavy work. I think part of my experience of working with those types of more critical environments when it comes to people that are coming in due to a crisis that they might be having, for me personally, being able to again just build that home within myself and also build community with other people that I can confide in, just as how it parallels to the type of support that I want to encourage for victims or just anyone who's going through something challenging within their lives. That support and the community is so important. Being able to have a psychologically safe space to be able to feel heard and to feel seen, that is just so important. So I appreciate what you're trying to do with this podcast and everything.
Yes. Thank you so much for touching up on that. And like, I think it is really relevant to what we're talking about in terms of like having a safe space within yourself, because the latter of not feeling safe in your body is due to trauma and due to just the ways of living in which we've learned that aren't necessarily conducive to our health. And I think it's important that the work that you have been doing too, and then the job that you were trying to, I'm not gonna get into it, but yeah,
I don't know.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Can I speak to it? I don't know if I can. I'm gonna spit out this gum real quick.
Oh yeah. Okay. No worries. I can cut it out.
Okay.
Too.
Cool.
No worries.
Cool.
Okay, we're still on. And then maybe I know we're kind of good and close on time, so maybe we can close this up. What about we just do like final words, advice, encouragement to those who are listening and who have been resonating with what you're saying? Like, what a message that you have for those who are still learning how to curate safeness within themselves.
I think as someone who can be a little impatient and someone who has anxiety as well, and like those racing thoughts of like, why can't I just like get to the point where I am happy and like am at peace, and like, you know, especially with seeing examples of what that could look like on social media and other people's stories and whatnot.
Oh yeah, don't believe what you see on social media. It's so fake. It's fake.
It is so curated, right? I think just being able to hone in on that inner slowness or like just your inner pace, and allowing yourself to take things incrementally, just one day at a time. I think that's super important. And I think the start of how to get to the point where you can build that safe space within yourself is to really get to know yourself and get personal with who you are. And that includes the dirty, like the nasty beliefs that you might have about yourself, whether it comes from within or whether or not it comes from, you know, the people around you that the people you had around you when you were growing up, whether it be from like your parents or, you know, whoever raised you, right? I think a lot of those negative narratives within our minds can be very detrimental to our ability to be able to show up for ourselves and within community. So I think being able to take some time out, even just something as simple as checking in with yourself. I'm a big believer of practices that are not going to be that are not going to have like a huge barrier to entry. So just something simple as checking in with yourself. So that's something that I do personally, where I'll just pause and I'll be like, hold up, all right, I can sense that like I'm so excited right now. Like before this podcast, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like I just talked with one of my friends about like ChatGPT and stuff, and like all this stuff. And like I had to just put my phone down first off, and be like, okay, Sharon, how are you? How's it going? And then the next step is just leaning into our everyone's innate ability. To a certain extent, I want to be mindful of, you know, people with diverse abilities, but being able to connect to your breath, right? Being able to connect to your breath and being able to pause and take a 4-count breath in, 6-count breath out, and doing that a few times. You can put your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly again to just be able to really tune in back into your body and like feel that breath move in and out through your body. I think that helps for me to just get that sense of like solace in the middle of my busy day. So that's what I want to share with everyone, and I hope that
okay, can we do one right now?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. So we're gonna make sure your feet are planted on the ground. All right, make sure you're feeling comfortable. You're going to put your hand on your belly, hand on your heart, and then you're going to take 4 counts in and make sure you're able to expand your lungs in your belly. So 2, 3, 4. And then exhale. On a count of 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And really suck that air out of your belly that you had inhaled in. And doing that a few times, I think, can be so grounding. And just, I didn't get to speak to this a lot, but being able to build up that self-compassion within yourself, because we are not granted that nowadays. Building that safe space again within yourself so that you can show up authentically and be able to trust yourself to show up in spaces to build that community. I think that helps. I think that just helps overall. So
Yeah, just being authentic to yourself and for you, and yeah, in a way that is like healthy too, and not self-sacrificial.
Yeah, definitely. I think being in community requires self-compassion and compassion for other people, because at the end of the day, this is something I've learned. You'll come across, as humans being complex, like you'll come across people within your own community that can be annoying to you, and that's okay. We're all humans. We're all imperfect. So building in that self-compassion for yourself will again you'll be able to allow yourself to again show up in community authentically and be able to be around other folks in community.
Yeah. So. I love that you brought that up. Sometimes you gotta tolerate people a little bit. It's like, that's community. And I mean, even in your family or just greater communities. Yeah, that's an important thing. Perfection doesn't exist. Sorry, you can't just have it all.
Yeah.
You gotta take some, and you lose some. So
yes, building resilience. I think that's the overarching theme of like, how do we build resilience in today's space. So
yeah. Okay. Well, we'll wrap it up today. I really hope that everyone enjoyed listening from Sharon. Maybe I want to have Sharon back again at some point.
I would love that.
Maybe with a brand new job.
Yes. Okay.
I don't want to psych it.
I'm already manifesting it in my head. I already have it.
Yeah, we're manifesting. Which is different from being delusional. I'm just kidding.
Oh no,